The Solar Storm Survivors. Part 1, The Dying City of Ethelgard. The air in Ethelgard tasted like metal and despair. For generations, the city had burrowed deep into the Earth's crust, a testament to humanity's resilience in the face of the Great Flare. But now, even the reinforced concrete and lead shielding were failing. The hum of the life support systems, once a comforting lullaby, had become a strained, erratic wheeze. Inside the hydroponics lab, Elara adjusted the nutrient feed, her brow furrowed in concentration. The withered tomato plants drooped under the artificial sun, a pathetic imitation of the life that once flourished on the surface. She was a botanist, one of the few remaining in Ethelgard, tasked with prolonging the city's dwindling food supply. Her hands, calloused and stained green, trembled slightly. She knew the truth, the bitter, undeniable truth whispered in hushed tones throughout the city: Ethelgard was dying. The solar flare, the event they now simply referred to as the Great Flare, had been a cataclysm. It had ripped away Earth's protective atmosphere, leaving the planet exposed to the raw, unfiltered fury of the sun. Radiation levels soared, temperatures fluctuated wildly, and the constant bombardment of micrometeorites turned the surface into a desolate wasteland. Ethelgard, like a handful of other cities around the globe, had survived the initial onslaught by retreating underground. They had become self-sufficient havens, relying on geothermal energy, recycled water, and hydroponics to sustain their population. But the Great Flare had also damaged the Earth's magnetic field, weakening its shield against the continuous solar wind. Over time, the radiation seeped in, poisoning the soil, the water, and even the very air they breathed. Ethelgard's shield, once impenetrable, was now riddled with microfissures, allowing the insidious radiation to infiltrate. The city's elders, desperate to delay the inevitable, had implemented rationing, tightened security, and poured every available resource into repairing the shield. But the damage was too extensive, the resources too scarce. A loud clang echoed from the corridor, followed by a string of curses. Elara sighed and pushed herself away from the hydroponics bed. It was likely another equipment malfunction, another symptom of the city's slow decay. She grabbed her radiation suit, a bulky, cumbersome garment that offered minimal protection against the relentless radiation, and headed towards the noise. She found Kale, the city's chief engineer, wrestling with a sputtering generator. His face, usually grimly determined, was etched with exhaustion and frustration. Sweat plastered his dark hair to his forehead, and his hands were covered in grease and grime. "Another one bites the dust," he muttered, kicking the generator with a clunk. "I'm running out of parts, Elara. This city is falling apart faster than I can fix it." Elara knelt beside him, her heart sinking. Kale was a miracle worker, able to coax life back into machines others had long given up on. If he was losing hope, then the situation was truly dire. "We need to find a solution, Kale," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "The council is running out of ideas. People are starting to panic." Kale looked up, his eyes filled with a weary resignation. "There's only one solution, Elara, and you know it. We need to leave." The word hung in the air, heavy and ominous. Leaving Ethelgard meant venturing onto the surface, into the heart of the radiation storm. It was a near-certain death sentence. "There's nothing out there, Kale," Elara protested. "Just death and decay." "Not necessarily," Kale replied, his voice low and insistent. "There's a rumor, a whisper that's been passed down for generations. A place the elders have dismissed as a myth." He paused, looking around as if someone might be listening. "They call it the radiation shadow. A region where natural rock formations create a pocket of reduced radiation. A place where life might still be possible." Elara stared at him, her mind reeling. The radiation shadow. She had heard the stories as a child, dismissed them as fanciful tales told to frighten children to give them hope. But Cale, a pragmatic engineer, wasn't prone to believing in fairy tales. Do you believe it's real?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," Cale admitted. "But it's our only chance. The council is considering another round of rationing, another crackdown on dissent. But that will only buy us a few more months, maybe a year at best. If the radiation shadow exists, it's worth the risk." He stood up, his posture stiff with determination. "I've been studying the old maps, the geological surveys from before the flare. I think I've located a possible area, hundreds of kilometers to the north. It's a long shot, but we have to try." Elara looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. The odds were stacked against them. The surface was a death trap, filled with radiation, mutated creatures, and the remnants of a destroyed civilization. But staying in Ethelgard meant a slow, agonizing death. Cale was right. They had to try. "I'm with you," she said, her voice gaining strength. "We'll find the radiation shadow." Part 2, The expedition takes shape. The decision to embark on the expedition was met with a mixture of hope and despair. Some saw it as a desperate gamble, a fool's errand that would only lead to more death. Others saw it as the only viable option, a chance to escape the slow suffocation of Ethelgard. The city council, after much deliberation, reluctantly agreed to support the expedition. They allocated a small amount of resources, a heavily modified transport vehicle, limited rations, and a handful of volunteers. Cale, as the expedition leader, meticulously planned every detail. He knew that survival depended on careful preparation and unwavering discipline. He chose a crew of 10 individuals, each with their own unique skills and strengths. There was Marcus, the former head of security, a hardened veteran with a steady hand and an unwavering loyalty to the city. He was the team's muscle, responsible for defense and navigation. There was Anya, a young doctor, whose medical knowledge was essential for treating injuries and illnesses. She was compassionate and resourceful, able to make do with limited supplies. There was Jian, a skilled mechanic, who could repair and maintain the transport vehicle. He was quiet and introspective, but his mechanical skills were invaluable. And then there was Elara, the botanist, whose knowledge of plant life could potentially help them find food and water on the surface. She was determined and resilient, driven by a fierce desire to find a new home for her people. The transport vehicle, affectionately nicknamed the Wanderer, was a marvel of engineering. It was a heavily armored truck, equipped with lead shielding, radiation filters, and a powerful engine that could navigate the treacherous terrain of the surface. Days turned into weeks as the team prepared for their journey. They underwent rigorous training, practicing their combat skills, learning how to repair the vehicle, and studying maps of the surface. They knew that every step they took outside the city walls could be their last. As the departure date drew closer, Elara found herself spending more time in the hydroponics lab, tending to the plants. She felt a deep connection to them, a reminder of the life that had been lost and the hope for a future where life could flourish again. One evening, Cale found her in the lab, watering the withered tomato plants. He stood in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the dim light. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice quiet. Elara looked up, her face etched with a mixture of apprehension and determination. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied. Cale stepped into the lab and walked towards her. He stopped a few feet away, his gaze locking with hers. "This is going to be dangerous, Elara," he said, his voice filled with concern. "There's no guarantee we'll make it. Are you sure you want to do this?" Elara reached out and touched his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. "I have to, Cale," she said, her voice firm. "Ethelgard is dying. We need to find a new home, a place where our people can survive. Kale squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with admiration. Then let's find it, he said. The night before their departure, Elara couldn't sleep. She wandered through the empty corridors of Ethelgard, her footsteps echoing in the silence. She passed the dormitories, where families huddled together, whispering prayers and sharing stories. She passed the mess hall, where empty tables stood as a testament to the dwindling food supply. She passed the hospital, where the sick and dying lay in their beds, waiting for the inevitable. Ethelgard, once a symbol of hope and resilience, was now a tomb, a monument to humanity's failure to protect its planet. Elara vowed to do everything in her power to find a new home for her people, to ensure that their sacrifice was not in vain. Part 3, Journey into the Wasteland. The gate of Ethelgard groaned open, revealing a blinding white landscape. The sun, unfiltered and merciless, beat down on the wasteland, casting long, distorted shadows. The air crackled with radiation, a silent, invisible killer. The Wanderer rumbled forward, its powerful engine straining against the loose gravel and debris. The crew members held their breath, their hearts pounding in their chests. They were leaving the only home they had ever known, venturing into the unknown. The surface was a desolate, alien world. Twisted metal skeletons of buildings pierced the sky, monuments to a bygone era. The ground was a barren wasteland, covered in scorched earth and shattered rock. There was no sign of life, no trace of the vibrant ecosystems that had once flourished on the planet. The radiation meter inside the Wanderer spiked, its needle flickering erratically. The radiation filters whirred, struggling to keep the air breathable. The crew members donned their radiation suits, their faces obscured by bulky helmets and visors. The first few days were uneventful, save for the constant threat of radiation exposure. The Wanderer navigated the treacherous terrain, its armored wheels crushing the debris and gravel. The crew members maintained a strict routine, rotating shifts for driving, monitoring the radiation levels, and repairing any damage to the vehicle. As they traveled deeper into the wasteland, they began to encounter signs of mutated flora and fauna. Twisted, grotesque plants clung to the rocks, their leaves shimmering with an unnatural glow. Strange, insect-like creatures scuttled across the ground, their bodies distorted and misshapen. One afternoon, as the Wanderer was crossing a particularly desolate stretch of land, they were ambushed by a pack of mutated wolves. The wolves were larger and more aggressive than any wolves the crew members had ever seen. Their eyes glowed with an eerie light, and their teeth were razor-sharp. Marcus, as the head of security, quickly organized the defense. He and Jian manned the gun turrets, firing bursts of energy at the wolves. The wolves, driven by hunger and desperation, relentlessly attacked the Wanderer, their claws tearing at the armor plating. The battle raged for several minutes, the air filled with the stench of burning fur and the deafening roar of the energy weapons. Finally, after suffering several casualties, the wolves retreated, leaving behind a trail of blood and carnage. The attack served as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked on the surface. The crew members knew that they were not alone in the wasteland, and that they would have to be constantly vigilant if they wanted to survive. Days turned into weeks, and the Wanderer continued its northward journey. The crew members grew weary and disheartened, their hope dwindling with each passing day. The surface was even more desolate and dangerous than they had imagined. One evening, as they were camped in the shelter of a dilapidated building, Elara noticed something strange in the distance. A faint green glow emanated from a cluster of rock formations, unlike anything she had seen before. She pointed it out to Kale, who examined the area through his binoculars. He frowned, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I don't know what that is," he said, his voice uncertain. "But it's not on any of the maps. We should investigate." The next morning, the Wanderer headed towards the green glow. As they drew closer, they realized that the glow was coming from a patch of mutated vegetation, thriving in the shadow of the rock formations. Elara was ecstatic. She had never seen anything like it before. The plants were unlike anything she had ever studied, their leaves shimmering with an iridescent green light. They seemed to be drawing energy from the radiation, somehow using it to fuel their growth. As she examined the plants more closely, she noticed something even more remarkable. The radiation levels in the immediate vicinity of the plants were significantly lower than in the surrounding area. The plants were absorbing the radiation, creating a pocket of reduced radiation in their immediate vicinity. Elara realized that they had stumbled upon something truly extraordinary. The plants were creating a small, localized radiation shadow, a haven from the deadly radiation of the surface. Part 4, Hope in the Green Glow. The discovery of the mutated vegetation breathed new life into the expedition. The crew members, reinvigorated by the hope of finding the radiation shadow, worked tirelessly to establish a base camp in the vicinity of the plants. They cleared out a section of the dilapidated building, reinforcing the walls and installing radiation shielding. They set up a water purification system, using the contaminated water from a nearby well. They planted seeds from the hydroponics lab, hoping to cultivate a small garden. Elara, as the botanist, devoted herself to studying the mutated vegetation. She collected samples, analyzed their composition, and ran experiments to determine how they were able to thrive in the harsh environment. She discovered that the plants had undergone a remarkable adaptation to the radiation. They had developed a unique cellular structure that allowed them to absorb and neutralize the radiation, converting it into energy that fueled their growth. Elara realized that these plants held the key to their survival. If they could learn how to cultivate them, they could create a sustainable source of food and energy, and potentially expand the radiation shadow to encompass a larger area. Kale, as the leader of the expedition, focused on establishing a long-term plan for survival. He organized the crew members into teams, assigning them specific tasks and responsibilities. He established a system for rationing food and water, and he implemented a strict security protocol. He also began to scout the surrounding area, searching for other potential resources. He discovered a network of underground tunnels, remnants of a pre-flare mining operation. The tunnels were filled with dangerous creatures and traps, but they also contained valuable minerals and equipment. As the days turned into weeks, the crew members began to adapt to their new life in the wasteland. They learned to hunt the mutated creatures, to scavenge for supplies, and to survive in the harsh environment. They formed a close-knit community, relying on each other for support and companionship. One evening, as the crew members were gathered around a campfire, sharing stories and laughter, Anya, the doctor, noticed something strange about Elara. Her skin had taken on a slight green tinge, and her eyes glowed with a faint, ethereal light. Anya approached Elara, her brow furrowed in concern. "Elara, are you feeling all right?" she asked. "You look a little different." Elara smiled, her eyes sparkling with an otherworldly glow. "I'm fine, Anya," she said. "In fact, I've never felt better." She explained that she had been experimenting with the mutated vegetation, attempting to integrate their DNA into her own cells. She believed that by doing so, she could develop a resistance to the radiation, and potentially even gain the ability to absorb and neutralize it like the plants. Anya was shocked and concerned. She warned Elara of the potential risks of such a dangerous experiment. But Elara was adamant. She believed that it was the only way to ensure the long-term survival of her people. Over the next few weeks, Elara continued her experiments, gradually increasing the amount of mutated DNA she introduced into her body. She experienced a range of side effects, including headaches, nausea, and fatigue. But she persevered, driven by her unwavering determination to find a solution to the radiation problem. One day, as she was tending to the mutated vegetation, she felt a surge of energy coursing through her veins. She realized that she had finally succeeded. Her body had fully integrated the mutated DNA, and she was now able to absorb and neutralize radiation like the plants. She ran back to the base camp, her heart pounding with excitement. She told Kale and Anya about her breakthrough, demonstrating her newfound ability by absorbing the radiation from a nearby generator. Kale and Anya were amazed and overjoyed. They realized that Alara's discovery had the potential to transform their lives. If they could learn how to replicate her experiment, they could create a new generation of radiation-resistant humans, capable of thriving in the wasteland. Part 5: Building a New Eden. The discovery of Alara's transformation marked a turning point for the expedition. The crew members, inspired by her success, dedicated themselves to replicating her experiment. Anya, as the doctor, took the lead, studying Alara's DNA and developing a protocol for safely introducing the mutated vegetation DNA into other humans. It was a delicate and dangerous process, requiring precise measurements and careful monitoring. They started with a small group of volunteers, carefully selecting individuals who were physically and mentally strong. They monitored their progress closely, tracking their vital signs and monitoring for any adverse reactions. The experiment was not without its challenges. Some of the volunteers experienced severe side effects, requiring intensive medical treatment. Others were unable to successfully integrate the mutated DNA, and had to be withdrawn from the experiment. But gradually, the team began to see progress. The volunteers who successfully integrated the DNA developed a resistance to the radiation, and even gained a small degree of the ability to absorb and neutralize it. As the number of radiation-resistant humans grew, the crew members began to expand their operations. They cleared out more buildings, established new gardens, and explored the surrounding area in search of more resources. They discovered a cache of pre-flare technology, including solar panels, water purifiers, and medical equipment. They repaired the equipment and put it to use, improving their living conditions and expanding their capabilities. They also began to encounter other survivors, scattered throughout the wasteland. Some were hostile, driven mad by radiation exposure and desperation. Others were friendly, eager to join their community and share their knowledge and skills. Kale, as the leader of the expedition, focused on building a sustainable society. He established a system of governance, based on principles of equality, cooperation, and respect. He created a school, where children could learn about the history of the world and the science of survival. He fostered a culture of innovation and creativity, encouraging people to develop new technologies and solutions to the challenges they faced. Alara, as the botanist and the first radiation-resistant human, became a symbol of hope for the community. She continued to study the mutated vegetation, developing new ways to cultivate it and harness its power. She also dedicated herself to teaching others about the importance of environmental stewardship, emphasizing the need to protect and preserve the fragile ecosystem they had created. Over time, the small base camp in the wasteland blossomed into a thriving community, a testament to the resilience and adaptability of the human spirit. They called it New Eden, a symbol of their hope for a future where life could flourish again on the surface of the earth. Part 6: The Shadows Stir. Years passed in New Eden. The community grew, its population swelling with new births and the arrival of other survivors. The radiation-resistant humans thrived, adapting to the harsh environment and building a sustainable society. But their newfound peace was not to last. The wasteland held secrets, ancient and dangerous secrets that were stirring in the shadows. One day, a group of scouts returned from an expedition with alarming news. They had discovered a massive underground complex, hidden beneath the ruins of a pre-flare military base. The complex was filled with strange technology, and guarded by mutated creatures unlike anything they had ever seen. Kale, as the leader of New Eden, organized a reconnaissance mission to investigate the complex. He led a team of experienced scouts and fighters, including Marcus, Anya, and Alara. They descended into the darkness of the underground complex, their flashlights cutting through the gloom. The air was thick with the stench of decay and the hum of strange machinery. They discovered that the complex was a pre-flare research facility, dedicated to the study of genetic engineering and biological weapons. The scientists who had worked there had been experimenting with the mutated flora and fauna, attempting to create new weapons and technologies. But the Great Flare had disrupted their experiments, unleashing a torrent of radiation that had mutated the creatures and transformed the scientists into grotesque monsters. The monsters now guarded the complex, protecting its secrets from the outside world. As the team explored the complex, they discovered a chamber filled with cryogenic stasis pods. Inside the pods were the bodies of the pre-flare scientists, preserved in a state of suspended animation. One of the pods was labeled Project Chimera, a top-secret experiment that involved merging human DNA with the DNA of the mutated creatures. Kale, horrified by the implications of the project, ordered the team to destroy the pods. But as they were preparing to destroy the pods, one of them suddenly activated. The glass shattered, and a figure emerged from the pod. It was a creature unlike anything they had ever seen, a grotesque hybrid of human and animal, with glowing eyes and razor-sharp claws. The creature attacked the team, its movements swift and deadly. The team fought back, firing their energy weapons and slashing with their knives. But the creature was too strong, too fast, too relentless. Marcus was killed in the initial attack, his body torn apart by the creature's claws. Anya was injured, her leg broken by a falling piece of debris. Kale and Alara managed to fight off the creature, but they knew that it was only a matter of time before it returned. They retreated from the complex, carrying Anya's injured body. They returned to New Eden, bringing with them the horrifying news of the underground facility and the monstrous creature that guarded its secrets. Kale knew that New Eden was in danger. The creature was a threat to their survival, and they had to find a way to stop it. He called a meeting of the council, sharing the details of their discovery and outlining a plan of action. The council agreed that they had to destroy the underground facility and eliminate the creature. They organized a team of their best fighters, equipping them with the most advanced weapons and technology they possessed. Kale, Alara, and Anya, despite her injury, insisted on joining the team. They knew that they were the only ones who truly understood the danger they faced, and they were determined to protect New Eden from the threat that lurked in the shadows. Part 7, Confronting the Chimera. The team descended into the darkness of the underground complex, their hearts pounding with apprehension. They knew that they were walking into a trap, but they had no choice. They had to stop the creature before it could escape the complex and threaten New Eden. They moved cautiously through the corridors, their senses on high alert. They encountered pockets of mutated creatures, but they were able to dispatch them quickly and efficiently. As they approached the chamber with the cryogenic stasis pods, they heard a low growl echoing through the complex. The creature was waiting for them, lurking in the shadows. The team prepared for battle, their weapons raised and their eyes scanning the darkness. Suddenly, the creature burst from the shadows, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. The battle was fierce and brutal. The creature was incredibly strong and agile, able to dodge their attacks and inflict devastating blows. The team fought bravely, but they were slowly being overwhelmed. Anya, despite her broken leg, used her medical knowledge to create distractions and provide support for her teammates. She threw makeshift flashbangs, disorienting the creature and giving the team a chance to regroup. Alara, using her ability to absorb and neutralize radiation, created a shield of energy around the team, protecting them from the creature's attacks. She also used her knowledge of the mutated vegetation to create traps, ensnaring the creature and slowing it down. Kale, as the leader of the team, fought with unwavering determination. He dodged the creature's attacks, firing his energy weapon and slashing with his knife. He was determined to protect his people, to ensure that New Eden would survive. But the creature was too powerful. It tore through Alara's energy shield, leaving her vulnerable to its attacks. It knocked Kale to the ground, pinning him beneath its massive weight. Just as the creature was about to deliver the final blow, Anya crawled forward, her face contorted with pain and determination. She pulled out a syringe filled with a potent neurotoxin, a weapon she had developed to kill the mutated creatures. She plunged the syringe into the creature's neck, injecting the neurotoxin into its bloodstream. The creature roared in pain, its body convulsing violently. It released its grip on Kale and staggered backwards, its eyes losing their glow. The neurotoxin had worked. The creature was dying. The team watched in silence as the creature collapsed to the ground, its body twitching and spasming. Finally, after several minutes of agony, it breathed its last breath. The creature was dead. The team had won. Part 8, A Future Under the Scorched Sun. The victory over the Chimera was a Pyrrhic one. The team had suffered heavy casualties, and Anya's injury was severe. But they had succeeded in protecting New Eden from the threat that lurked in the shadows. They returned to New Eden, carrying Anya's body and the bodies of their fallen comrades. They were greeted as heroes, their bravery and sacrifice celebrated by the entire community. Anya was given the best medical treatment available, but her leg could not be saved. She lost her leg, but she gained the respect and admiration of everyone in New Eden. She became a symbol of courage and resilience, a testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome adversity. Kale, Alara, and the rest of the team mourned the loss of their fallen comrades. They knew that their sacrifice had not been in vain, that it had paved the way for a brighter future for New Eden. In the months that followed, they worked tirelessly to rebuild and strengthen their community. They expanded their gardens, improved their defenses, and developed new technologies. They also began to reach out to other survivor communities, sharing their knowledge and resources. They formed alliances, working together to create a network of self-sufficient havens scattered throughout the wasteland. Alara continued her research, developing new strains of radiation-resistant vegetation. She discovered that she could accelerate the mutation process by exposing the plants to controlled doses of radiation. She created gardens that glowed with an ethereal light, providing food and energy for the community. She also continued to explore her own abilities, learning to control and manipulate radiation with greater precision. She became a protector of New Eden, using her powers to shield the community from the dangers of the wasteland. Kale, as the leader of New Eden, focused on building a just and equitable society. He established a system of laws and customs, based on principles of fairness and compassion. He created a school, where children could learn about the history of the world and the science of survival. He also began to plan for the future. He knew that the radiation levels on the surface would eventually decline, making it possible for humans to live without the protection of the radiation shadow. He started a program to train future generations for the task of rebuilding the Earth. Years passed in New Eden. The community thrived. Wanderer of Worlds, if you enjoyed this tale, hit like, share, and subscribe. Each gesture weaves a stronger nexus. Until our paths cross again, let your curiosity guide you forward.